Hello and welcome to the Matt Ligor Show. I'm your host, Matt Ligor. Today we're going to be talking about projects. I don't know if you've ever done a home improvement project where maybe you add an addition or you built a garage or redid a septic tank. All those, it's such an exciting time when you decide you're going to do something like that, right up until you put the plan into action, and then you realize how many things you didn't think of, how much longer it's going to take, and of course, how much more money. There's always those hidden fees. A couple of years back, I did my septic system, which in North Reading, you have no choice. You have to do a septic system or your house is basically useless. So we called and we had the plans all laid out. And it got so complicated and so cumbersome at one point, I really considered that maybe it would just be easier to sell my house and move. Now, I didn't do that. I ended up following through with the project. And in the end, it came out fantastic. The house was obviously better equipped with a new state-of-the-art septic system. We redid the yard. We had a bigger and a better yard. We cut down some trees. And it really was beautiful. So when the final project was done, it was well worth it. But there's enough red tape that keeps you from maybe wanting to pursue the next project. So I'm always intrigued when I see people who take on big projects that don't necessarily benefit themselves as much as a home improvement project might. When I see a civil project done and I see people taking it on, I'm always wondering why they might want to do that. So today we're going to be talking about the North Reading Recreational Trail that is kind of in the works right now. And we're going to be talking to two gentlemen about it. Mr. Phil Hertz, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Rich Wallner, been on the show before. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So first off, if you could just tell me, Phil, what do you do? Because you don't work for the state and you don't work for the town of North Reading. What's your profession?
I'm mostly retired. I was a supply chain consultant for 30 some odd years. So I'm good at buying things and negotiating things.
All right, excellent. And Rich?
Currently, I'm a financial planner and advisor.
Yeah.
And I'm on the select board of town.
Okay, all right. So now let me ask you individually, why did you want to take on this project? In a nutshell, why did you want to do this?
To give the town access, give the population of the town access to land in the woods that has previously been closed to the public. There's some really nice land that's owned by North Reading and by the town of Linfield that people would really enjoy to use, but it's been unavailable to them.
I gotcha. And Rich, I know you do other things with the town, but why did you want to take this project on also?
I just happened to be at a Apple Fest covering a booth, and a woman came up and explained to me that there was a trail in town that had already existed. I had no idea. I'd lived in town since 91. Had no idea that we had an existing trail already in place, and never heard of it, and almost no one in town ever has. And so I thought it would be a great project to take on and bring an amenity to our town that we didn't have from before.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in other words, you want to help improve the town, make it a better place to live for all of us. Recreation, it's a big thing, So now I didn't know about these trails either. So why don't you just explain to everybody what it is, what's in the works? Like, what is the recreational trail, and where is it going to start? Where is it going to end?
Sure. The trail will start on the east side of town on Elm Street, Route 62. There'll be a bridge there'll be a parking area on Route 62 and a bridge over the Ipswich River into the land that was acquired by the town some 15 years ago, the former Smith property, now known as Riverwoods. This abuts some 600 acres of conservation land in the town of Wilmington. There is an abandoned rail trail in that area, and the bridge will connect into the abandoned rail trail, into the rail bed.
Yeah.
Then the trail will come out of the woods and go on into Englewood Lane or Apple Tree Lane, follow Apple Tree Lane down to Park Street to Mount Vernon Street, Mount Vernon Street to Havel Street. This will all be new sidewalks that will be put in, probably wider than a normal sidewalk because it'll be more of a trail, but it'll be basically new sidewalks. And then the trail would make its way into Ipswich River Park, into a lot of the existing trails that are in Ipswich River Park. There will also be an additional bridge built from across the street from the high school, middle school football fields. A similar bridge to the one that's being built on M Street. It'll be built on Park Street. It'll span over the marshlands and the Ipswich River and join basically Park Street near the high school playing fields to Ipswich River Park. The trail, depending on the funding available, the trail could stop at Ipswich River Park or go another half a mile or so to Chestnut Street.
Okay, all right. You can see these rail beds sometimes when you go down Park Street. Depending if you're going towards the center of town, you can see it out there to the right.
Yes.
So, partially using the rail beds, and partially
partially on the rail bed, partially on the streets. We had the original plans were to follow the rail bed a little bit more closely, but a lot of that land is private now. The railroad has been defunct for almost 100 years, and the land, unlike a lot of railroads in this part of the country where it sort of devolved to the MBTA, the railroad, the Salem to Lowell line, was sold off to private developers. So to follow the rail bed would mean, in many cases, going onto people's backyards, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we've compromised by running the trail with new sidewalks on some of these other streets.
And at what point, at what level, where are we in the process? Are we just talking about it, or are we close to beginning it?
Well, we're certainly not close to actually constructing it.
Yeah.
Back in 2018, the town meeting approved $55,000 for a feasibility study. We also received an additional $45,000 from the state Mass Trails grant. So we had a total of about $100,000 to use towards the feasibility study. The feasibility study was completed in January, and the feasibility study looked at the different options. So if the feasibility study is available for people to look at, there are lots of different options that were laid out there. Some of them, most of them we're not going to do, but it did show that it was feasible. Part of the feasibility study was also to present it to MassDOT, and we've done that. And it is on the process of being given a MassDOT project number. Now, this trail is, as you can imagine, is very expensive. It could.
When you say expensive?
Well, the total cost of designing and building the project would be in the order of $12 million.
Okay. Yep.
So a lot of money. So that's not something the town would have the appetite to finance.
Right.
So there are programs where the state will take over the construction and basically pay for all of the construction, but the town needs to pay for all the design and the planning. So where we are right now, we've done the feasibility study. The next phase is the first phase of planning. And that's what we're working on right now, is to try, we're going to go to the town meeting in October to get the town to vote for the funding to do the first phase, what they call the 25% phase of the design. There would then be, at that point, the MassDOT would review the initial design. They would say, fine, this meets all of our requirements. Go ahead and do the final design and permitting. We would then have to finance that final design. And when that was finally finished and it met MassDOT's requirements, they would begin construction.
Okay, all right.
So long-winded answer, but it's complicated, like your septic tank.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot more work to it than it seems.
Right.
Like.
So where we are is the feasibility study is done. The next step is the initial design.
All right. Okay. Now, when I hear about this, I like to walk. I go on a lot of walks, to get my exercise. But one thing North Reading lacks in a large quantity is sidewalks. And if it is a sidewalk, sometimes it's on a really busy street.
Exactly.
And it's not very relaxing to have trucks bearing down on you, and it works, but it could be better. Right. So when I hear this, I actually feel like excited as if it was something for my own house, you know, because it's part of my community,
Right.
something that everybody can access and everybody can use. So I guess my next question is, obviously it's feasible and it can be done.
Yes.
All right. But like there can be resistance to any kind of project, doesn't matter what it is. Why would it be beneficial for the town? Aside from the stuff that I just said, what other things make it beneficial for the community to do this?
Sure. I mean, the sidewalks are sort of, just to give the sidewalks, it can be very expensive for the town to build sidewalks on the streets that we're proposing to build sidewalks. There's utility poles that have to be moved, retaining walls that have to be put in. It's not like putting in a new subdivision where you just sort of bulldoze a flat space and have a sidewalk. There's a lot of engineering and design that has to go into these sidewalks. These are old neighborhoods, and they need to be fit in there conscientiously. Mm-hmm. So you get the sidewalks, you get the safety that's associated with getting people off walking, instead of walking on the street, they can walk on sidewalks. There's also, we're building the bridge that connects the high school, middle school into Ipswich Park. Again, it's a safety concern. Children, adults, today, if they want to walk from the high school, middle school, they have to either walk way up Havel Street or they have to walk down to Central Street.
Yeah.
And this would give them a direct shot into the high school. But I think above and beyond is exactly how I started. There's this wonderful wooded area that's on the east side of town that abuts Linfield, that the town owns, and not to mention the wonderful area that's now Linfield. And to build access directly from North Reading, from Elm Street, with parking and a bridge right into this land, will give people a whole nother park. People talk, well, we have Harold Parker. Why do we need another park in North Reading? Well, parks, it's not like you don't need, having more parks is always a better thing. Mm-hmm. And this land exists. That land exists. It's just giving people access to it.
Yeah. You know, Harold Parker is, I think, a great example of a beautiful area to hike and everything. And I've never been there once. Oh, I've never got it. And you know why? You know why I haven't been there is because it's not that easy to get to. You have to get in your car. You have to drive to it. So if there was a way to, say, walk there, mm-hmm. I would be more inclined to do that. Right. Rich, I want to ask you a question because you're not only involved in this. We had another show where we discussed a downtown project and everything. Like, what is another reason why you want to do these kind of projects for the town? Like, what is it that makes it like have some teeth?
This is a legacy. This is a legacy project that will last for, generations to come forward. And once you have a trail, this type of access for people to use, it'll forever be there. And so I'm really dedicated to the town and keeping people in our town and giving them reasons to stay in our town, because I'm all about building community. And the way you build community is not to have people transition in and out, but have them stay. This would be another reason for people to stay. And it goes beyond even just community connection. It goes down to, there's fiscal reasons why that makes a lot of sense to keep our community together. So I think that's very important. I think that while if you've heard about other projects being done in other towns, there's always an element of resistance because there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the recreational trail can offer to the town. But when you look at it objectively, and we're not the first to do this project, there's certainly many other towns that do it. The benefits over a period of time are just it's beyond imagination. It's just a huge, it's a really wonderful thing to be able to offer as a town to our residents and give them access, safe access, even for the kids to be able to not ride down 62, but to actually ride down the trails, on their bikes when they're doing that sort of thing. It's a safety issue. It's just a better quality of life for all. Yeah.
So on this recreational trail, no motorized vehicles.
No motorized. So nothing motorized.
Okay.
Yeah, very clear. Matter of fact, that will eliminate the motorized. There's already people using the trail now. Right.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be out there, and neighbors complain about the noise of that going on all the time. But there's been no restrictions. This will actually make this a serene a pleasant experience for all.
All right.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at is a recreational trail that kind of runs right through the center of North Reading, basically, you know. And it's going to add to the community. As far as financing it, most of it is going to be paid by the state, correct?
The vast majority of it would be paid by the state. There could be as much as a couple $1 million that would have to be paid for by the town.
Mm-hmm.
But the state is prepared to pay close to 10, if not more.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So you get an improvement that basically is 80% financed.
Right.
You know,
yeah. And there are grants. I mean, we're applying for up to a $500,000 grant that could, if we get the grant, it could offset the money that we're asking for from the town in October.
Mm-hmm. So Phil, I want to ask you a question. You know, taking on projects, I'd say it's a lot easier not to do this than it is to do it. Right?
Certainly.
Why did you decide to, you know, kind of spearhead this?
Well, I mean, similar to Rich, I first explored those trails a long time ago, like 25 years ago, and it just seemed that it was such a shame that this land was not available for use, that there was no easy way to get in there. And then over the years, it's only sort of become sort of greater. And then I sort of was entering into honestly, I was entering into retirement,
Mm-hmm.
and was thinking of projects to try to do and help the town. And I said, well, here's a project that could last a good chunk of the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah.
These things can often take 15, 20 years.
Sure. Yeah. Nothing ever goes as fast as you want it to.
No, it's
Except your birthdays.
yeah, yeah. These things take a long time.
Yeah.
And to Phil's credit, I mean, Phil is, you know, he's a consultant. He dug into all the deeds. He's done like heavy duty lifting to try to figure out all the logistics that are in between this. And there was a substantial amount of detailed work that needed to be studied. I mean, you couldn't hire a consultant to do what he's been doing.
Yeah.
And he sold me, I mean, I was sold on the project before Phil and I got connected, but then Phil and I took a ride in the woods. He showed me how beautiful it was. And I had just I had no idea that this even existed. And once I saw what it was, it had to be done. I mean, there's no, let's put it this way. It had to be brought to the town's attention to vote it up or vote it down.
Yeah.
But it had to go that far. And so this is you know, I think when the town, and we're still working through issues, there's no question, we still have more issues to go. But I think when the town finally sees it in October, I think they're going to be highly supportive of it and will appreciate what it's going to offer the town, and we'll get behind it.
Yeah. Well, really, you know, thank you to you guys to do this, because you guys have lives. You know, you don't work for the town, you don't work for the state. You know, I know when I walked through Ipswich River Park, when I first moved here, I moved here in 2004. I used to take my kids down to Ipswich River Park all the time. All right. And it's such a tranquil area to be in, and it's nice. It's good for the community. You see people. You end up seeing the same people, and you might not know their name, but you know each other. Mm-hmm. So it's a good connection. And I've always kind of been infatuated with the rail beds that are in the town. And walking across to where across from where Ipswich River is, I think is that Central?
Central Street.
Central. You walk across and you can find the old bridge abutments.
Right.
And, you know, when you're back there, I don't know, it brings a sense of like nostalgia to what once was. And I think that it would add so much to our community to be able to like experience it. Like, hey, you know, my kids are getting older, so maybe when I have grandkids, be like, hey, this used to be a railroad, you know, years ago. Mm-hmm. But just the beauty of it. We drive through North Reading, and we all love it here. We live here. It's a beautiful town. But the heart of it, like inside, you don't get to see it. That's right. And this recreational trail would open that up.
It runs right along the river back in there. And that stretch of trail, putting a new bridge over those pilings that are there, it would connect Ipswich River Park to North Parish Park, because North Parish Park is kind of like the forgotten park.
Yeah, exactly. It's where you drop kids off and pick them up for different events.
Right. So there'd be parking. You could park in North Parish Park and easily walk to Ipswich River Park.
No kidding. I always saw that park there. I think I've walked through it one time just because I drove by it so many times. I said, I have to at least go see what it is, you know? And because it's isolated in like a little island by itself, it never gets used for what it's designed for.
Yeah, I think that's the park that Park Street's named after.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's Park Street. And when I first moved here, that's where people used to dump their Christmas trees.
Now we pick them up.
Yeah, we put them in the trash. So, Rich, just one more thing on like what it does for the community. I moved here in 2004 for two reasons. One, nice community. Two, the schools. All right, I knew my kids were going to go to school. I wanted them to go to a good school system. What happens usually after the kids grow up?
When people are sitting out at graduation on the field and their last kid is going through the high school, the questions they ask themselves is their life after kids, because they've had this great experience with the schools. They've been really connected on the athletic fields, through all the projects, all the activities that the kids do. So they ask themselves two things. One is there life after kids? And do I stay or do I go? And for many, many reasons, it's really important that they realize that they have a life after their kids leave, and that there's a place for them within town, and the town needs them to stay. And the other part is that we need people without kids to support the people that have kids in their community. It takes two houses of empty nesters to help send one kid to school, and so it's 2 to 1. So if you have one child in your house, you need your neighbors to help send your kid to school, because that's how much it costs them to send them. So we need to give reasons for people to stay. And it's, it's about seniors, but it's about rising seniors. Rising seniors are the parents who, they're asking those questions, do I stay or do I go? And they have to make a decision. And unfortunately, in North Reading right now, the bailout rate, the rate of people coming here just for the schools and then leaving, is right now 40% of the people plan to leave. The state average is 20%. So we have not done enough to give people reasons to stay here. This would go a long ways to help people find another reason to stay in town and give back in the same way when they came here that the community has done for them.
Yeah.
Did
you want to? Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Did you want to add anything to that?
No, I just feel that anything that the town can do to make it more livable is a plus. And these trails in towns, people love them. It's not unusual when people propose a new trail in a town for there sort of be not in my backyard kind of reaction. Mm-hmm. But that passes very quickly. And I think if people talk to residents in other towns, they'll get a uniform response that these things are beneficial to the town. They really do help.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely need a few more amenities in this town, mm-hmm. because this is a beautiful community to live in. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's safe. It would be nice to have a couple more things to tie it together.
Yep, right.
I think it would really make it truly make it Mayberry. Yeah. Of course, I just said a reference that anyone under 45 is not going to know what I'm talking about, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Mayberry was the fictional town on Andy Griffith that was peaceful, quaint, and everybody knew each other. I do realize, like in North Reading, it's like I know a lot of people, accidentally. I didn't go around introducing myself, but it's a small community, and you get to know each other.
And there's something to it's a little bit of that Cheers thing, a place where everybody knows your name.
Yeah.
That's where I want to live. I mean, the things that makes people happy over the long term is they want to live in their home as long as they can, they want to live in their community as long as they can, and they want to lead a life of purpose. Yeah. That's what we need to do in our town to make people happy. This is one part of that puzzle.
Yeah.
To make that happy and keep them in town where everybody knows your name. If you like that sort of thing,
Yeah.
I like to think I could go downtown, which we don't have, but I like to think I can go downtown and see people I know on a daily basis and have a good conversation with people.
I think there's one thing that everybody learned over the last 2 years, that being by yourself is not fun, all right? And, a recreational trail during COVID would have been packed, all right, nonstop. Because when during COVID, everybody walked. Everybody had to get out of their house and walk. And you realized how much you need each other. You made so many more friends during that time because you just were out, in a nice, calm, social setting, walking. Walking has a way of bringing people together. So communities need access to each other, or else it's not a community anymore. You're isolated and you live by yourself.
That's right. Yeah, and then you lose that nice hometown feeling.
Yeah.
And there's so many more people walking today than when I moved here in the mid '80s, and there's a sidewalk in front of my house, and you wouldn't rarely see people walking down the sidewalk. Now, I mean, there's probably somebody walking down that sidewalk every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, people are walking into the center, and the sidewalk in front of my house would connect to the sidewalk that we're talking about for the trail.
And I found out today that the trail will actually go right in front of my house, which, you know, and by the way, I'm all for it. I'm not opposing it at all. But like, there is people walking up and down my street all day.
On the street.
Yeah, on the street, in the middle of the street.
Right.
All right, people walking their
narrow
dogs,
street.
and kids go up and down all the time. You know, and I'm a little bit over the top with being on the sidewalk. I just, you know, very few people get hit by cars. All right, but it's the thought, it's the idea of it, and the sidewalk is somehow just another safety barrier to not being in danger at all.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, and keep you more relaxed. You know, you're not worrying about cars running you over.
Yeah.
And as part of the project too, crossings would be put in place.
Mm-hmm.
So where the trail does cross the road, not only would there be sidewalks, but there might even be a pedestrian light.
Yeah.
A very short pedestrian light. It's not
Sure.
something that would interfere with traffic. It would only come on when somebody was actually there.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. So, in conclusion, is there one thing you want to add, Rich?
Yeah, so I'll just add, you know, so we're going to be asking for up to $850,000 come October.
Yep.
And then we'll be asking for that again, probably 2 years after that. So, you know, for $850,000 times 2, what do you get? Even if you didn't think about the recreational trails, you get a bridge going into recreational area we never went into before, which is Riverwoods.
Mm-hmm.
You get a bridge that connects the high school, middle school to Ipswich River Park,
Mm-hmm.
which each of those are $2 million each.
Yeah.
You get sidewalks, and you get a recreational trail on top of it. This is a huge value for the town, and the state is more than willing to pay for it. And by the way, when we talk about sidewalks, it won't be telephone poles in the middle of the sidewalk like you've seen when the town does it.
Mm-hmm.
They are literally going to make this. They're going to move the telephone poles, which is an extremely expensive thing to do. So they're going to make it a real sidewalk, a real trail, and everybody's begging for sidewalks.
Yeah.
And you know they're hard, they're expensive to make, and we're going to have it covered by the state. So if you just even added those up, it's a great deal. I mean, you know, the bathrooms at the high school was almost $1 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
This will be obviously used a lot more.
Yeah.
In a substantial way. So, you know, we think it's a reasonable ask of the town. The funding is intended to come from, not to add on to the tax burden, it's intended to come from free cash, is I think the intending for the funding. So we're not going to run up any more debt, and I think that's where we're going to try to find the money for that.
Excellent.
So we need the support from the town to be able to go with that.
All right. Phil, anything else?
No, this is a great time. The state is more enthusiastic than they might otherwise be. There's more money. Some of the money is coming from the federal infrastructure program.
Mm-hmm.
There's more grants available. So it's just really the right time to do this.
Yeah. You're going to pay your taxes one way or another, so why not get something for them, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And make your life more user-friendly, a better community, and a nicer place to live for the future. Because, like we said, the clock's only going one way for us. You know, we're not getting younger. And my kids, I have one graduating this year and one graduating in a few years. So, you know, the question will be, you know, do I want to stay or do I want to go?
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to stay.
I'd love you to stay. I know I am.
All right.
Phil
So,
has.
Phil, thank you for
Thank
being
you.
on the show. Rich, thank you for being
Thank
on
you.
the show.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you for watching the Matt Ligor Show. You can see the Matt Ligor Show obviously on NORCAM, and I have my own YouTube channel, the Matt Ligor Show. So thank you, and we'll see you next time, and hopefully we'll have that recreational trail next time we see you.